Be me senior software dev at a mid-sized, fairly successful tech company. Been here for years. It's a decent gig. The pay is good, the work is challenging, and management usually leaves us the hell alone. Our department is the core of the company. We build and maintain the flagship product that brings in 90% of the revenue. We're a small team. Just 6 of us, plus our boss, Parker. The office space we have is unofficially called the Pit. It's in the corner of the building, away from the bright, open-plan spaces where the marketing and salespeople hang out. The lights are usually dimmed. The only sounds are the clicking of mechanical keyboards and the low hum of overpowered PCs. We're not exactly a social bunch. We're a team in the way a submarine crew is a team. We don't need to like each other, but we have to be damn good at our jobs and trust the guy next to us to be the same. Communication is minimal and efficient. A question shouted across the room about a specific API call, a quick check Slack, a link to a Stack Overflow page. No pointless small talk. No, how was your weekend? We're here to build things, solve problems, and go home. And it works. Our department has the highest performance metrics in the entire company. The lowest employee turnover. We just get stuff done. Our boss, Parker, is the reason for this. Parker is a former coder himself. A real old-school guy who remembers when you had to compile kernels just to get online. He understands us. He knows that developers work best when they're left to focus. His entire management philosophy is to act as a human shield between us and the rest of the company. Some marketing manager wants a quick meeting to brainstorm new features. Parker tells them to submit a detailed ticket with a business case analysis. The meeting never happens. Upper management wants us to start using some new trendy project management software. Parker runs a pilot program for 6 months, declares it inefficient, and lets us keep using our old, reliable system. He handles all the corporate bureaucracy so we don't have to. He translates vague business demands into concrete technical requirements. He's the best boss I've ever had. He protects his team and values competence above all else. And the most competent person in the Pit, the guy the whole structure really rests on, is Owen. Owen is a ghost, a legend. He's been with the company since the very beginning. He wrote the original code for our main product. He's probably in his late 30s, but it's hard to tell. He's incredibly quiet. In the 5 years I've worked here, I think I've heard him speak maybe 100 words total. And most of those were just yes, no, or it's a caching issue. He sits at the corner desk, always has his noise-canceling headphones on, and just codes. For 8 to 10 hours a day, his fingers just fly across the keyboard. He doesn't take breaks, except to get water. He eats his lunch at his desk. A new guy on the team once asked what Owen actually does. The senior engineer next to him just laughed and said, "Owen does everything." It's true. He's not just a programmer. He's the system architect. He's the database administrator. He's the emergency DevOps guy. The entire complex ecosystem of our product lives inside his head. There are parts of the legacy code that no one else understands. We've tried, we've looked at it, and it's like trying to read ancient hieroglyphs. But Owen knows every line. When there's a problem no one can solve, a bug that's been haunting us for weeks, the final step is always the same. Go ask Owen. You walk over to his desk. You wait for him to finish his line of thought. He'll slowly take off his headphones and look at you. You explain the problem in as few words as possible. He doesn't say anything. He just swivels his chair over to your desk. He'll look at your screen for maybe 30 seconds. His eyes just scan the code. Then he'll reach over, take your keyboard, and type something. Maybe he'll delete a semicolon. Maybe he'll change a true to a false. Maybe he'll rewrite one single function call. Then he'll hand the keyboard back, give a little nod, and walk back to his desk. And the problem will be solved every single time. He's not a colleague, he's a force of nature, a living pillar holding up the entire company. And he asks for nothing in return, no recognition, no promotions. He's refused a management position multiple times. He just wants to be left alone to do his work. So, that was our ecosystem. Parker the shield, Owen the pillar, and the rest of us as the functional, efficient walls. It was perfect. Then Adeline arrived. The first sign of trouble was an all-company email. Subject: welcoming our new head of human resources. It was a picture of a smiling woman in her late 20s. The email was full of buzzwords about her passion for people-centric synergies and her vision for a more inclusive and dynamic corporate culture. We all read it, rolled our eyes, and archived it. HR was just another form of bureaucracy that Parker handled for us. We figured it wouldn't affect us. We were wrong, so wrong. The first all-hands meeting with Adeline was an experience. She stood at the front of the room with a PowerPoint presentation full of stock photos of diverse people laughing together. She talked for an hour straight. She used words like empowerment, vulnerability, psychological safety, and unpacking our unconscious biases. She announced a series of new, mandatory company-wide initiatives. The first one was Fun Fridays. Every Friday, from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m., work would stop for mandatory team-building activities, board games, trivia, that sort of thing. The entire pit just looked at each other. Friday afternoon is prime time for deploying code before the weekend. Taking 2 hours away from that was insane. The second initiative was Wellness Wednesdays, an hour every Wednesday for guided meditation or office yoga. Mandatory. But the worst, the absolute worst, was the circle of trust. Every Monday morning, each department had to sit in a circle, and everyone had to share their personal and professional feelings from the previous week. The goal, she said, was to build deeper, more authentic connections. You could feel the collective dread in our corner of the office. The first circle of trust was one of the most awkward hours of my life. Adeline sat with us, beaming, urging us to open up. One of the junior guys nervously said he felt good about the progress on ticket number 743. The sales team on the other side of the office was loving it. They were sharing stories about their kids, their weekend trips, their frustrations. We just sat there in silence. Parker eventually stepped in and gave a generic update about our project timeline, trying to end the misery. Adeline was not pleased. She said our department needed the most work on emotional expression, and her eyes kept landing on Owen. Owen, of course, was treating the whole thing like it wasn't happening. He had his laptop with him. He was sitting in the circle, but he was staring intently at his screen, monitoring a complex data migration script. He hadn't said a word. Adeline stopped the meeting. "Owen," she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness, "is there anything you'd like to share with the team? We'd love for you to be present with us." Owen slowly looked up from his screen, as if noticing she was there for the first time. He looked at her, then around the circle at all of us. He just shook his head slightly, a simple no, and looked back down at his laptop. You could see a switch flip in Adeline's head. She had found her target, her project, the nail that stuck up and needed to be hammered down. From that day on, she was fixated on Owen. She started trying to engage him in conversation when she walked by our department. "Hi, Owen. How's your day going?" He would just give a quick nod and not break his concentration. She would send him emails with articles about the importance of soft skills in tech. They went unread. In her mind, his quiet focus wasn't a sign of a brilliant mind at work. It was a sign of a problem. She started using new terms in her meetings with management. She talked about the need to address toxic masculinity in the workplace. She never named Owen, but we all knew who she was talking about. She described a type of employee who is uncommunicative, unwilling to be a team player, and who creates an intimidating environment for others through their silence. It was absurd. Owen was the least intimidating person I knew. He was always willing to help. You just had to ask. He didn't engage in office politics or drama. He just did the work. But Adeline saw the world through a different lens. She saw a man who didn't perform the social rituals she expected, and she decided he was a threat. Things came to a head about a month later. Adeline had scheduled a mandatory, all-day workplace sensitivity training seminar. It was on a Thursday. The problem was, a huge critical software update was scheduled to be deployed that exact day. It was a massive project we'd been working on for 6 months. Parker went to Adeline to try and get our department excused. He explained the situation. The deployment was business critical. It couldn't be rescheduled. He needed all hands on deck. Adeline refused. Her argument was that nothing was more important than ensuring the company had a safe and respectful culture. She said the training was non-negotiable. Parker fought back. I wasn't in the room, but he told us about it later. He was furious. He told her that Owen, specifically, was absolutely essential. He was the only one who could manage the database side of the deployment. If he wasn't there, the risk of catastrophic failure was huge. According to Parker, Adeline's response was chilling. She said, "No single person should be that important. That's a structural problem. It sounds like Owen is a bottleneck. Maybe we need to reevaluate his role if the team can't function without him." She completely missed the point. He wasn't a bottleneck, he was the engine. Parker was overruled. The entire company had to attend the training. The day of the training was a nightmare. We were all sitting in a conference room, listening to a consultant talk about microaggressions, while our phones were buzzing with automated alerts from the server. The deployment, which was being run by a script, was starting to fail. Parker was getting frantic. He kept trying to step out to take calls. Adeline publicly reprimanded him for not being engaged with the material. Around 2 p.m., the big one hit. A major alert. The primary database had crashed. This was a code red, all hands on deck. The company is losing thousands of dollars, a minute kind of emergency. Parker stood up. "We're leaving," he announced to our team. Adeline stood up too. "This training is mandatory, Parker. No one is leaving this room." Parker just looked at her, a cold, hard stare. "The site is down. The entire product is offline. We're going to fix it." He turned and walked out. The rest of us followed him without a second thought. We got back to the pit, and it was chaos. Alarms were blaring on our monitoring dashboards. Everyone started frantically trying to diagnose the problem. We were pulling up logs, checking servers, trying to figure out what went wrong. It was a mess. After 20 minutes of getting nowhere, Parker did the only thing he could. He walked over to Owen's desk. Owen had been the only one with the foresight to bring his work laptop to the training. He was already deep into the system logs. Parker didn't even have to say anything. Owen just pointed to a line on his screen. It was a configuration error in the deployment script, a tiny single-character typo that had caused a cascading failure, corrupting the database index. It was something that only Owen, with his encyclopedic knowledge of the system, could have spotted in minutes. The rest of us might have taken hours if we found it at all. For the next hour, Owen was a surgeon. He took control. He didn't speak. He just typed. He was issuing commands, restoring backups from a command line, manually rebuilding the corrupted index. The rest of us just watched, feeding him information when he asked for it with a simple hand gesture. It was terrifying and beautiful at the same time. We were watching a master at work. He single-handedly pulled the entire company back from the brink of disaster. By 4 p.m., the system was stable. The site was back online. The crisis was over. We were all exhausted but relieved. Parker went to get everyone coffee. Just as we were starting to relax, Adeline walked into the pit. She had a clipboard and a furious expression on her face. She didn't acknowledge the crisis we had just averted. She didn't ask if everything was okay. She walked right up to Owen's desk. He was still working, running diagnostics to make sure the system was fully recovered. "Owen," she said, her voice sharp, "I need to speak with you and Parker in my office. Now." Parker came back with the coffees just in time. "What's this about, Adeline?" "It's about your entire department's insubordination," she snapped. "Walking out of a mandatory training session is a serious violation of company policy. Especially you, Owen." She looked at him. "After you refused to participate in the circle of trust, and now this, it's a clear pattern of refusing to be part of this team." We were all stunned into silence. Parker stepped between her and Owen. "Adeline, Owen just saved this company. He just prevented millions of dollars in losses because of a crisis that happened because you wouldn't let us do our jobs. You should be thanking him, not reprimanding him." Her face was a mask of disbelief. "The culture of this company is more important than any single project," she said, reciting her mantra. "And the culture I am building is one of collaboration and respect. Owen's behavior is unacceptable. His technical skills do not give him a pass to ignore his responsibilities as an employee." She looked at Parker. "My office. Now, both of you." She turned and stormed off. Parker looked at us. He had a look on his face I'd never seen before, a mix of anger and sheer exhaustion. He told us to keep an eye on the servers and followed her. Owen, after a moment, got up and went with him, his face completely unreadable as always. The rest of us just sat there, in shock. We knew this was it. This was the final battle. The world of corporate buzzwords was about to have its ultimate collision with the world of actual, tangible results. An email from Adeline arrived in Parker's and Owen's inboxes a few hours later. I saw the notification pop up on Parker's unlocked screen when I went to ask him a question. Subject: formal disciplinary meeting. We all had a very bad feeling about where this was going. The meeting happened the next morning. Obviously, the rest of us weren't in there, but Parker gave us the full breakdown later that day. He said they walked into Adeline's office, and she wasn't alone. She had a senior executive from the main office with her, someone from the corporate HQ. A clear power move. The atmosphere was apparently colder than a server room in winter. Adeline had a stack of papers in front of her. She started the meeting by reading from a script. It was a formal list of Owen's transgressions. It included his refusal to verbally participate in the circle of trust, his failure to integrate during mandatory team-building events, and the final charge of gross insubordination for walking out of the sensitivity training. She presented it as a clear, documented pattern of behavior. Parker said he tried to interject, to provide context. He explained the server crash. He emphasized that Owen's actions saved the company from a major disaster. He tried to frame it as a question of priorities. Adeline was ready for that. She didn't even let him finish. She turned to him and said that his constant defense of Owen's antisocial behavior was part of the problem. She claimed that by shielding Owen, Parker was enabling a toxic work culture where technical skill was valued more than human decency and teamwork. The executive from HQ just sat there, nodding along to whatever Adeline said. He clearly had no idea what our department actually did. He was just there to back up HR. Then came the ultimatum. Adeline slid a document across the table to Owen. It was a Performance Improvement Plan, or PIP. Getting a PIP in the corporate world is basically the first step to getting fired. It's a paper trail to justify your termination. Parker told us the contents were insane. The PIP required Owen to attend weekly social skills coaching sessions with Adeline. It mandated that he had to make a verbal contribution in every single team meeting. It set a target for him to initiate a non-work-related conversation with a colleague at least once a day. The final point was the most ridiculous. It required Owen to write a formal letter of apology to the sensitivity training consultant for walking out. Parker said he just lost it at that point. He told them this was the most insulting, demeaning document he had ever seen. He said, "You are taking our most valuable technical asset, a man who has built this company from the ground up with his work, and you are trying to turn him into a chatty office drone. This is madness." Through all of this, Owen had been completely silent, just listening. Adeline ignored Parker and looked directly at Owen. "This is non-negotiable, Owen. You will sign this document and you will adhere to every point on it. If you refuse, we will have to move to the next step." She was so smug, so sure of her victory. There was a long pause in the room. Then, for the first time in the entire meeting, Owen spoke. He looked Adeline right in the eyes. He said one word. No. Not angry, not defensive. Just a calm, quiet, final statement of fact. Parker said Adeline looked like she had been slapped. She was not used to people telling her no. She was expecting him to be intimidated, to crumble under the corporate pressure. But Owen wasn't playing her game. He had a quiet dignity that she just couldn't break. Her face hardened. "I see," she said. "Then you leave me no choice. This meeting is over. We will be in touch." Parker and Owen left her office. The war had been lost. Now, we were just waiting for the final sentence. Parker told us he went straight to the CEO's office. He was going to go over Adeline's head. He was going to make the CEO understand the reality of the situation. He laid it all out. He explained Owen's role, the history of the product, the sheer technical risk of losing him. He framed it in business terms: revenue, stability, product development. The CEO listened patiently. But the CEO was a businessman, not a tech guy. He understood spreadsheets and marketing reports. He didn't understand the delicate, complex machine that our department maintained. Adeline had already gotten to him. She had filled his head with fears of lawsuits, of a toxic reputation, of not being a modern company. She had spoken his language, the language of liability and public perception. The CEO's final decision was weak and political. He told Parker, "I appreciate your perspective, but I have to support my HR department. We need to build a consistent culture here. No one is irreplaceable. I need you to handle this and support Adeline's decision." Parker knew it was over. The company had made its choice. They chose ideology over competence. They chose appearances over results. The official meeting was scheduled for the end of the day, 4 p.m. Adeline called just Owen and Parker into a small, windowless meeting room, the kind of place they fire people in. The rest of us in the pit just tried to work, but no one was getting anything done. The air was thick with a kind of quiet rage. We all knew what was happening. We were about to watch our company willingly and stupidly chop off its own arm. Around 4:15, the door to the meeting room opened. Parker and Owen walked out. Adeline stood in the doorway behind them, watching them go. She had a look on her face that was a mixture of triumph and exhaustion, the look of someone who had finally won a long, hard-fought battle. Parker walked over to his desk, took a deep breath, and turned to face the five of us. Owen just stood beside him, calm as ever, holding a small cardboard box with his personal effects. A coffee mug, a few programming books, a worn-out keyboard. "Well, they did it," Parker said, his voice flat. Adeline just terminated Owen's employment. He let that sink in for a moment. "His official reason for termination," Parker continued, his voice dripping with sarcasm, "is on failure to align with core company values of teamwork and communication." A bitter silence hung in the air. We had all seen this coming, but the reality of it was still a punch to the gut. Then Parker did something none of us expected. He took his company ID badge off from around his neck. "So," he said, looking around at all of us, his team, "I have just tendered my resignation, effective immediately." He placed his badge on his desk with a quiet, final click. "I will not work for a company that punishes its best people. I will not be a part of this." He looked at Owen. "It's been an honor." Then he started packing his own things. There was a beat of silence, and then the first domino fell. It was Dave, our other senior engineer. He'd been at the company almost as long as Owen. He stood up, walked over to Parker's desk without a word, and placed his own badge right next to Parker's. Then he turned around and started unplugging his monitors. A second later, another one of our guys, a mid-level dev named Ben, did the same. Badge on the desk. No words, just quiet action. Then the next guy, and the next. I was the last one. I looked at the scene. I looked at the growing pile of ID badges on the desk. I looked at my boss and my colleagues, these quiet, brilliant people I had worked alongside for years. I thought about my mortgage, my car payment, the risk. Then I thought about what this place was about to become. A place where your value wasn't in the quality of your work, but in how well you could pretend to care about the latest corporate fad. A place where a quiet genius like Owen could be cast out for not being sociable enough. It wasn't a hard choice to make. I stood up, added my badge to the pile, and started packing my bag. The whole thing took less than 2 minutes. 5 resignations, a silent, unified protest. We packed up our personal belongings. It wasn't much. A few pictures, some tech gadgets, a collection of novelty mugs. We were all ready to go. Parker led the way. As we walked out of the pit, we passed Adeline. She was just standing there, in the middle of the aisle. Her mouth was slightly open. Her triumphant expression was gone, replaced by one of pure, uncomprehending shock. She looked at us, then at the empty desks, then back at us. It was like her brain couldn't process what was happening. She had followed her playbook perfectly. She had identified a problem employee. She had documented his behavior. She had gotten management buy-in. She had removed him. She had won. But she had never considered the consequences. She had never understood that our department wasn't a collection of interchangeable employees who cared about synergy. We were a team built on mutual respect for skill, and she had just fired our foundation. As we walked past her, one of the guys, Ben, paused for a second. He looked her right in the eye. "Good luck with your culture," he said. "You're going to need it." And then we were gone. We walked out of that building together, the entire technical core of the company, and we didn't look back. The aftermath was, from what we heard, spectacular. The very next day, a secondary system failed. It was a fail-safe monitoring script that Owen had built. It was designed to prevent data corruption during server backups. Only he knew its exact quirks. Without him there to manage it, the script failed silently. The backups became corrupted. No one even noticed until the main server had a hardware failure 2 days later. When they went to restore from the backup, there was nothing usable. Years of customer data. Gone. The company went into total meltdown. The CEO, in a blind panic, apparently tried calling Parker's cell phone over and over. Parker finally answered. The CEO begged him to come back, begged him to get the team back. He offered double the pay, bonuses, anything. Parker's response was simple. He told the CEO that it was too late. He explained that for the past year, their biggest competitor had been trying to recruit him and Owen. They had been offering huge salaries and a brand new lab to build a product from scratch. Parker had always turned them down, out of a sense of loyalty to the company he had helped build. But the moment they walked out of that office, he had made one phone call. He told the competitor's CTO what had happened. The CTO's response was, "I can have offer letters for your entire team by the end of the day. Name your price." So, Parker told the CEO that the entire department, including Owen, had already signed new contracts. We were starting at the competitor's firm next Monday. There was a long silence on the other end of the line, the sound of a man realizing he had just steered his ship directly into an iceberg. The CEO's final act was to find a scapegoat. Adeline was fired that same afternoon. The official reason was gross misjudgment leading to catastrophic loss of key personnel and intellectual property. The irony was delicious. So, here we are now. A few months have passed. The six of us are all working together at the new company. The pay is incredible. The project is exciting. And the best part? Management here are all former engineers. They get it. They leave us alone to do our work. There are no mandatory fun days, no circles of trust. Just challenging problems to solve and the resources to solve them. Our old company is a ghost ship. They had to issue a public statement about a major data event. Their stock plummeted. Last I heard, they were being acquired for pennies on the dollar. Someone found Adeline's LinkedIn profile the other day. She's rebranded herself as a freelance DEI and corporate culture strategist. Her profile is full of posts about the importance of psychological safety and authentic leadership. It seems no one else will hire her full-time. And Owen? He's sitting at his new desk, a few feet away from me. He has better equipment now, a bigger monitor, but otherwise he's exactly the same. Headphones on, fingers flying across the keyboard, building the foundations of something new and brilliant. Sometimes one of the new junior guys will get stuck on a problem, and after hours of struggling, will be told to go ask Owen. They'll walk over, nervously explain their issue. Owen will listen, nod, walk over to their desk, fix the problem in 30 seconds without saying a word, and go back to his work. He is respected here, not for his social skills, but for his genius, for the value he creates. They tried to break him. They tried to force him to conform to a world he wasn't built for, but in the end, competence won. It always does.